Yeah, all kinds actually. Probably my favorite story is one that concerns his daughter by his first marriage. Porter was married twice. Well, he was a student at the London School of Economics in post-war London, 1946 to 49. Just before entering the LSE, he met a woman who was also she was a Navy officer, and Elizabeth Stalker was her name. They had this brief sort of passionate courtship and got married around Christmas time of the end of his first year of studies. Shortly after, Elizabeth became pregnant, but within a year, the family broke up. Porter and his wife could not get along. They separated before the daughter was born. He saw her once very briefly after she was born, literally for a minute at the hospital. And then they had a very nasty, messy separation and an eventual divorce. Part of the deal at the time was no contact, but no support. And so until she was about 18 years old, John Porter didn't know anything about what had happened to his daughter. And then out of the blue one day, he got a call from his former wife saying would he be willing to have a relationship with his daughter because she was having psychological problems as a consequence of not knowing who her father was. So he agreed to do that. And so they started this correspondence for a while and went back and forth. It never really went very far. They didn't seem to get along all that well. But I was never able to follow up the story very well because I never was able to track her down. The family had lost touch with her. Mm-hmm. Then one day I'm sitting at my computer working on the book and I get an email message from this young woman. Lizzie Ellen was her name. She said she was doing family genealogy and she had Googled Porter's name and my name had come up, and so she had, entered me in and Googled me and got my name, and she wanted to know, did I know anything about a fellow by the name of John Porter? And I said, well, sweetie, I didn't say it quite like that, but you've hit the mother lode. I know more about John Porter than probably anybody in the world, including other members of his family in some ways. And so from that, it turned out that this was his granddaughter. His daughter Fiona had since married a medical doctor from the United States, living in Richmond, Virginia, and it would be his granddaughter, this young woman, was doing family genealogy, and she was able to put me in touch with the daughter, Fiona, who I then went down and interviewed, and she was thrilled to meet me and to hear more about her father because she knew, as a consequence of their difficult and very, sort of foreshortened relationship, knew very little about her own father. And so I'm going to be going to Ottawa in a couple of days to do a book launch. The University of Toronto was sponsoring a book launch along with Carleton University Department of Sociology and History, and she's going to be there. And so she's not seen the book yet. She's seen a few chunks of it that I sent to her, but she's not seen the book yet, and she's very excited to see it. And there were a number of things like that happened during the writing of the book. When you do this kind of biographical work, because you're dealing with people, and people have friends and colleagues and lives and lovers and things, of course it can get pretty interesting. Yeah, and this was no exception. I did, and it's got to be one of the greatest ironies of my life that I turned down the opportunity. What happened was that in 1977, I was here as a graduate student. I was doing my PhD. I had started my PhD here and then switched to University of Toronto a year later. But while I was here, it just turned out that year, the Department of Sociology had arranged to give John Porter an honorary degree from the University of Waterloo. He was the first, and at that time, the only sociologist ever to have received an honorary degree from the University of Waterloo. And the day before the ceremony, they were going to have a little wine and cheese party for John Porter. And one of my professors at the time, who later came to be a colleague, Jim Curtis, was the person who was sponsoring this event, or overseeing it. So he came up to me one day in the hall and he said, "So, would you like to go to this wine and cheese party and meet John Porter?" And at the time, I fancied myself very left-wing and very radical. I had really long hair and a really big beard, quite scruffy. Wore army clothes and big army boots and the whole thing. Was a Marxist of sorts. And John Porter was a relatively mainstream liberal sociologist, and at the time it was quite the fashion to treat people who were liberal mainstream sociologists with some degree of disdain. And so when Curtis asked me if I wanted to meet Professor Porter, I turned my nose up and said, "No, I do not want to meet a liberal apologist for the system," and turned around and walked away.
That's unfortunate.
It was unfortunate, great irony as well.